On behalf of the executive leadership and the full board of State Boards of Pardons and Parole, I wish to thank you and say good morning. I'm highly impressed that all of the sheriffs have turned out. We've been doing these events for some time, and we may see a local sheriff, but to have all of you here at one time is amazing. Where are you, sheriffs? Will you stand up? I want to see you. Just stand up, if you will, so everybody can notice these guys. Excellent. Good to see you. Thank you for coming out and working with us. Your hospitality has been extraordinary already, and we feel so comfortable here. And we look forward to the day's work as we get a chance to do that throughout the day. I've been asked to speak to the occasion, and you've already been introduced to the board, but I want to say just a few more remarks about the board members before I get into the occasion this morning. We each stood, but I'm going to take the time to let you, in case somehow you don't get to see all of us in a private setting today, so you can actually know a little bit about the board themselves. Albert Murray, all of us have been introduced already. Albert Murray is our chairman emeritus. He was the chairman of the board previous to my actually being elected by the board to become chairman. And he's actually been on the board since 2010. And he comes to us from the Department of Juvenile Justice, where he was the commissioner of juvenile justice. I'll ask Albert to once again stand up and let you see what Albert looks like this morning. Thank you, Albert. Thank you so very much. And our second ranking member is the vice chairman of the board, James Mills. James Mills served 20 years in the state legislature and is also a businessman up in the northern parts around the Atlanta area, Gainesville area. And James came to the board in 2011 and serves, as I already said, as vice chairman. James, would you stand up once again, please? James Mills. Then we have Brian Owens. Many of you probably recognize the name because he sort of has a household name, and that he was the commissioner of the Department of Corrections for quite some time. I've known Brian for a long time as we've worked together on all kinds of issues, but Brian just joined the board here in 2015. He's no longer the commissioner of corrections. He's now a member of the parole board. Brian, would you stand up also once again? Brian Owens. And then Braxton Cotton is not with us today. He's actually on a military assignment. He does the parole board. He's also a reservist, I think it is. A reservist, and he was called away for some duty during this time. Otherwise, he would be with us today. You may know a little bit about Braxton. He comes to us as a law enforcement officer. I think he was a member of the Georgia State Patrol. He also was a deputy sheriff as well. So that's Braxton Cotton. I regret that he's not here to introduce him to you this morning. A little more than 6 years ago, communities were called upon to come together in recognition of the National Crimes Victims' Rights Week. And we do that annually, every year. It seems like the last few years we've done that in Forsyth, Georgia. And it is our goal to help victims become survivors. That's primarily what we're looking forward to, helping victims become survivors, to move over into that particular paradigm. And the parole board understands that for this to be realized, that we must first listen to the interest of the victims and work together toward a process that their needs can best be served individually. The board has adopted a process by where we meet with victims where they are in their communities of interest, and we believe that this gives them a sense of empowerment. It allows them to chart a pathway toward becoming a survivor. In fact, the board believes so strongly in this concept that we've created Victims Visitors Days to be held throughout the entire state of Georgia as we're doing this today. We go into the major cities, we even go into the rural cities from time to time and hold events similar as this today. And let me just say this is an amazing event for today. If you've not actually become the largest gathering of appointments, you are very close to being the largest gathering of appointments that we're going to meet with today in Brunswick. Let me ask this question, and I'll answer the question. What is a Victims Visitors Day? And to you it may mean all kinds of things, but I've just jotted down a couple of things from what I've seen from experience, that a Victims Visitors Day is actually a very powerful tool. It's a powerful tool whereby crime victims can search for answers to questions that may have lingered in their minds or in their thoughts for quite some time. It may be actual questions that they didn't even know they had until they actually showed up here this morning. Or maybe a question that they thought about from the very moment that the judge's gavel went down and the sentence was pronounced. And yet that question hasn't been answered. Victims Visitors Day is a greater opportunity for understanding, to understand the actual process and what a board member does or what a board does as they look toward future parole cases. It could actually be an opportunity for crime victims to learn how, in a very controlled setting, to confront that inmate. Confront the inmate who caused their pain and actually find resolve in getting the answer to that lingering question, why? 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 Or it might be just simply the satisfaction of letting that inmate know how their deeds has affected your lives. And I could go on and on and on, but this is the start. It's a stepping stone, is what we do here as the parole board in hosting these events. As you can see already, a majority of the board is here. We would have all 5 members, and it's unusual not to have all 5 members, but you can see a vast majority of the board is here. And once this General Assembly has completed, then we will actually go into private settings, private rooms with individuals, and we'll discuss their cases on an individual level throughout the day. I understand, if my notes are correct, that we have already greater than 70 appointments set forth. That number was continuing to rise this morning as we were coming in. And that nearly 200 individuals will have driven or will live in the area or will come here today to talk individually to the board. And I will assure you this, the board will accept walk-ins. Just because we have appointments doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to deny anyone who wants to talk to a board member privately. And we're not going to leave town until the very last victim has been heard from, and we've discussed or worked through their cases. That's what this is all about. That is what Victims Visitors Day is. And since the day began in 2006, the board has met with more than 2,500 victims and now 23 separate locations across the state. And our exit data shows that about 98% of all victims surveyed believe that their questions are answered to their satisfaction. I took a look at some of those survey responses from previous Victims Visitors Days, and from those responses, there was a common thread that weaved throughout those responses. And it was that a majority of those participating found a sense of control, and they actually found a pathway toward closure. It was a stepping stone. It was the beginning. It was a start. And as I stated earlier, it is very important that the board that all victims take control of their future and that they actually become survivors. Survivors. The board's committed to hearing your voices, whether it be on paper when you file those victim impact statements, or whether it be in person, as you many will experience today. We're committed to hearing from you as we continue to schedule events throughout the state. I want to take just a very short minute to mention someone particularly, and this sort of got started without consideration. It just sort of happened. Is Carolyn Preston Taylor here? Are you in the room? Is Carolyn in the room? There you go. Carolyn, would you stand up just a second? Thank you, Carolyn. You can sit back down now to be comfortable. I just want you to see her. And the reason I want you to see her is because she's not an employee of the parole board. She's not an employee of the sheriff's department. She's not an employee of the DA's office. She's a survivor. But what is more interesting about Carolyn is she's a volunteer. And she has been traveling to many of these events that the board has held, and she has personally worked as a volunteer to help with the organization, help other victims get here and find their ways through. And actually, she's inspired us in a sense. I understand the Office of Victim Services is now looking at initiating a program because of her efforts that we'll call the Victims Volunteer Group. So if you're interested in getting involved in the volunteer group, then get with Shalandra, and we'll put you together as this grows, and you can help us as we move into other cities, help us organize and make these events even more effective. Thank you, Carolyn, for your volunteerism. Thank you so much. Once again, on behalf of the State Boards of Pardons and Parole, the Department of Corrections, the Department of Community Supervision, and Jackie Johnson's office, we want to say we're so grateful. We're grateful for the opportunity to get to know you personally, and we're grateful for the opportunity to see you. And we hope that today you will find great value in having come here together for this event. Thank you so much.